Welcome to the Fall River Conservation Commission meeting being held at public hearing on Monday, August 1st, 2022, 5:30 in the first floor hearing room, One Government Center, Fall River. To consider the following petitions listed. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Can we start with roll call? We'll start at your end.
Chris Boyle here.
John Barat,
Jim Cusick.
Paul Armorel.
James Winsby.
and we're missing
Louis Ferrer.
Louis
Louis.
Pereira. Yeah. And we also have in attendance tonight Dan Aguirre, Conservation Agent, Nina Pavo, Recording Clerk, and from Fall River TV we have Gary Lett. First old business is Notice of Intent, SE-24-803. Owner applicant is Blunt Realty LLC, Blunt Fine Seafoods. Project location is 630 Current Road. Assessors map is D-21-0006, filed by Level Design Group on behalf of applicant. The applicant proposes to construct an additional 19,100 square feet of manufacturing additional and 4,065 square feet addition to an existing warehouse, office facility, and parking area. This was tabled from July 11th, 2022 meeting. They asked tonight that the motion be tabled. But before we make a motion to table, I do want to read from Tom Cloran, sent us a letter to Mr. Aguirre today. I'm in receipt of several emails sent earlier today, this afternoon, with regards to the work ongoing at the site. If it is not already ceased, it will cease immediately per our directive. We will also forward hard copies of the revised plans to you tomorrow. For our discussion on compliance with these two requirements will prevent an enforcement action. Thank you. However, if I am correct or something else is needed forthwith, please advise. And he apologized for the disconnect on this project, and hopefully we can start to move this forward in the right direction. So can I have a motion to table to
So moved.
September
Oops, sorry.
12th? Motion?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 And we should probably put a motion to cease and desist.
You can, if you're not comfortable with Attorney Coloran's letter, I don't have a problem with sending
All
a
right,
letter.
I think as being a board, we should put a motion to cease and desist order.
I move to issue a cease and desist order.
I second that.
Okay, roll call
Wait,
vote.
what is that about?
That means they can't do any further work till they get the right permits.
Right, okay,
So we're stopping the project from going forward.
yeah, this is the Blount.
Block, yes.
And they didn't get here tonight because, I mean, I heard that
Well, there's a few things. They don't have site approval, they don't have permits, they already started clearing, so we don't have where the wetlands are.
And they also have outstanding order of
Okay,
conditions,
yeah.
yeah.
so
That's why we're putting a cease and desist.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
they
I
can't-
might be able to add, so back in May, I started working with the consultant, and I had given him some initial review of the plan set and where this project sat. So over the last few months, they have been working on dotting some i's, crossing some t's, trying to address all of the concerns that I brought. They have not completed that to date. They're telling me that it is done now and that it will be submitted tomorrow to us. I can't say that that will be complete and they will have addressed my concerns.
No, I just-
However, you haven't even had the opportunity to hear this matter, so you're gonna have your own concerns.
no, I was expecting them.
What we were able to
Yeah.
find out also was that the applicant had not advertised in the Herald News. So they will be advertising, I think, from what I can gather, at the September meeting, we should have something that we can all look at, you can all hear a presentation, and hopefully a lot of the items will be cleaned up, so you're all looking at probably the best they can present to you. Then you can start with that and give it your review and your comments.
Right.
What's happened
Okay.
is the site contractor, again, as things get delayed, took it upon himself apparently to go do some clearing in the area that's being permitted. It was an area pretty much already with some type of activity taking place. They do have erosion control up, but they should not be working without permits. That's just,
Yeah,
that's,
okay, I was
you
over
know,
there.
that's the first thing you learn.
Thank you. Move the question.
Okay, so can I have a motion to put a cease and desist?
You did,
So
I just
moved.
moved to
Okay.
ask it, to vote, yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Alrighty. Moving on to new business, request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-750, owner applicant is Paul Furlan, 303 RP LLC, project location is 303 Bridley Way, assessor map is Y-06-0041, filed by Paul Furlan, request for certificate of compliance on all work regulated by order of conditions has been satisfied completely.
You should also have in your package a letter from the design engineer stating that work has been done in accordance with the order of conditions as well.
Okay. So can I have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to grant the certificate of compliance.
okay,
Seconded.
All right, roll call vote?
Aye.
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 aye,
All righty. Next on the list is request for determination of acceptability. Owner applicant is Paul Furlan, Administrator of Community Utilities. Project location is Atlantic Boulevard. Assessors map is A-15-0056 and A-15-0071. Filed by Santec Consulting Service, Inc. On behalf of applicant requesting determination of acceptability of whether the work depicted in the plan is subject to Wetland Protection Act, whether the area and/or work depicted on the plan is subject to jurisdiction of any municipal wetland ordinance by bylaws of Fall River. They did not advertise for this one, so I asked for a motion to table.
Motion to table?
Second.
Roll call
Aye.
vote? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Okay. Next is a request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-768, owner applicant's Highland Farms Development 2 LLC, 48 Brookfield Terrace. Assessors map is U-04-0062, filed by Highland Farms Development 2 LLC. Applicant requests a certificate of compliance. At the time of the inspection, all work regulated by the order of condition has been satisfactorily completed. Right now, we have no grass growth and no resource area signage. Any discussion?
And I think we discussed this at an earlier meeting. Is this the one where the pool is actually in?
Next lot.
the
Next lot.
Next lot over.
These people have come in and they're going through the process of applying for their pool.
Okay.
So they were not giving a building permit. The next lot is the one that there was a pool actually constructed. So you can deal with that one
And it
separately.
is in the.
Oh, it's in the buffer zone, for
It's in the
sure.
buffer zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on these lots, when they went through permitting, the back lots and the grading for most of these lots was pretty much to the extent of the upland area. I mean, it was almost right up to maybe 5 or 10 feet off of the wetland area. So they are working within an area that has been altered. However,
Yeah.
they still need to apply for whatever pool or anything that they want to put. Because again, you may feel that 15 feet away from the wetland is too close for a pool, where if they have room to be 50, then that's the directive you give them. The next lot, and we'll deal with that one separately, they put in a pool with no permits.
So on this one, we should deny it.
Or table.
Table?
Yeah,
Table.
you can
Table.
table it until they resolve.
So we'll table, can I have a motion to table?
so
Motion
moved.
to table.
Okay, roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye?
Wait a second on
We need
that.
a second.
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 Aye.
Aye,
Okay. Next is a request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-768, owner applicant is Highland Farms Development 2 LLC. Project location is 48 Brookfield Terrace. Assessors map is U-04-0062, filed by Highland Farm Development 2 LLC. Applicant requests a certificate of compliance. At the time of inspection, all work regulated by order of conditions has been satisfactorily completed. And this one still has no grass growth, no resource area signage, and no pool permit. Any
Correct.
discussion?
I'll make a motion to table this one as well.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to table, second. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Yes?
What we'll do is we'll send correspondence to the applicants that,
Okay.
you know, that their certificates were, the items were tabled, and that the pool needs to be permitted prior to the request of the final
Okay.
certificate of compliance. They might, you may be able to amend the original order of conditions to include the pool, if it is probably if it's the same applicant. We'll have to, we'll figure that out. It may require a separate filing for the pool
Okay.
itself, but
All right.
I'll alert them to what their rights are.
Then next is a request for certificate of compliance,
Happens all the time.
SE-24-769, owner applicant is Highland Farms Development 2, LLC. Project location is 30 Brookfield Terrace.
We just did that one.
Assessors map.
We just did that one.
That's what you did.
We did that one?
Yep.
Yeah, it was this last.
Is it show up twice on the agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it continues over item 4.
Oh.
From one
item
page
four
to the other.
continue- Okay.
Yeah, good.
All righty, skip that.
I think what you did is the second time you read the assessors map, I think you reread the first one twice. You said 0062 instead of 63 for the second one for 30 Brookfield Terrace. So I think that's what happened when you entered it in there.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to notice of intent. Owner applicant is Fall River Redevelopment Authority / VMD Company LLC. Project location Innovation Way. Assessors map is W-19-0185-0189, filed by VMD Company LLC on behalf of applicant. Applicant on the purpose of constructing multiple warehouse, parking, and loading facilities. How are we doing tonight?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Brian Dunn. I'm a principal with MDL Land Development and Permitting, with offices at 5 Bristol Drive in southeastern Mass. Here on behalf of VMD and the Fall River Redevelopment Authority. Next to me is Tim McGuire from Goddard Associates, who delineated the wetlands that are shown on our plans, which you previously approved earlier this year. And he's been working with Natural Heritage and the MESA application that is associated with this project. And Kyle Rayner just arrived. He's behind me from VMD. He'll be here to answer any questions you may have about the project. So we have in front of you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, not one, but two, but three buildings in the city of Fall River. The other one is in Freetown, which we've already filed our site plan approval in front of the planning board and conservation filing notice of intent in that town as well for building number 4. So you have, for building number 3. So you have 1, 2, and 4 in front of you, which are roughly around, 280 to 300,000 square foot buildings with, really a buffer zone project. We're keeping 25 feet outside the wetland area in the conservation restriction. As the commission may be aware of, there's a, pretty much a 52 acre plus or minus conservation restriction associated with these lots on Innovation Way that was agreed upon, during the MEPA process when these lots were created and the subdivision was created a few years ago. So we're, as part of this project, we're honoring that conservation restriction. We're not altering that conservation restriction. And the project in front of you with the 3 buildings in the city of Fall River does not alter any wetlands. Like I said, this is a buffer zone project. We've done our best to try to meet all of the standards of the covenant that's associated with this project. One of the issues is the 90% TSS removal that's required as part of the stormwater drainage system that we've designed. We've met that as part of the covenant with the number of water quality structures throughout the 3 sites in the city of Fall River. Part of the drainage design is some of its bioretention, some of its underground storage and infiltration for water quality and for recharging some of the roof. to meet the standards, the 10 standards of the MADEP. So I think that we've done, a pretty good job of trying to present what the owners are looking for to develop this property, be cognizant of the stormwater issues, the wetland issues, and also the habitat that is around us. We're seeking an order of conditions. I know that your agent and the city engineer is here, and you probably have some comments in regards to what we're presented. I know he's previously commented on the plans as they relate to the covenant issues. So we're here to answer any questions you might have and try to answer them as best as we can, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So on the 61 acres, you're only using 10 acres of it, right? Is that what you said?
No, so there's actually 52 acres of the total area, when I wrote that down.
I think 52 is just the restricted area.
That's the
Restricted
restricted
area.
area,
So the
52
total area
acres.
is gonna be almost double.
Is 120, the total
Yeah.
area of the lots are 120 acres.
Okay.
So of that 120 acres, 52 of them
Be set aside
are
for-
restricted and cannot be touched ever.
All right. I think the public would like to hear that, so saving the 52.
Right.
acres.
So I think that, Tim is here to talk about why we're saving it, what he's about to start doing with his
Yeah.
staff, and doing the turtle sweeps that are required through that MISA process. So we're on board to, do two things. One, develop the land, however, be sensitive to the stormwater issues, be sensitive to the wetland issues that are around the property, and also make sure that the critters are also protected with that restricted area of 52 acres.
I appreciate that. Does the board have any questions?
I can just add a little
Yeah.
bit to it. So, understand, this is a big project to look at. And as the applicant stated, the redevelopment authority has a higher standard of drainage design than the Wetlands Protection Act does. So if we review the project and it meets the requirements of the redevelopment authority, it will easily meet the requirements of the stormwater management guidelines that the Wetlands Protection Act has initiated. So we are in the process of chewing through these plans. And I was saying to Mr. Boyle a few minutes ago, when you look at a 24 by 36 sheet of paper, you look at it for a single-family house sometimes, and you don't get a full understanding of same size piece of paper, same size colored drawing, but you really don't get the understanding of what a massive area this is. With the conservation restriction, with the amount of land that even outside of the restricted area is technically not being developed, it's still gonna be green space. And you look at the overall footprint of what's happening out here for construction purposes, it's pretty well done. I know we've had a couple of questions regarding parking spaces and loading, so a lot of that gets driven by the redevelopment authority's regulations, and of course, you can all ask whatever questions you have for yourself. But in their regulations, they require that parking be located in a certain location for visitors and employees, that trailer parking is hidden behind a building, so they're handcuffed a little bit with trying to minimize their footprint by needing to meet those requirements. Those are covenanted restrictions recorded at the Registry of Deeds that apply to this piece of land. So when you're baking a cake, you have different directions. So imagine trying to bake a cake and make frosting and put it inside the cake, and you've got a bunch of moving parts that you've got to contend with. So from what I've seen initially, they've done a very nice job of doing that. When you look at the stormwater, and please do, and if you want me to one-on-one go through the stormwater design with you, not in a public hearing, because that might take a while. But this is a project that, as a learning experience, this is a massive undertaking for stormwater management. And I can tell that, at least it appears that there have been no corners cut, but I will review it completely to make sure all the numbers work and we don't have any increase in stormwater flows to the resource area, which is really your concern.
Okay.
Do the owners of these buildings, do they know how many people are gonna work within each building? Because I'm a little concerned, because looking at the site plans, I noticed that the minimum parking is around 40-something spots, and you guys are asking for 180 to over 200 parking spots, not for the trails, just regular parking. So do you foresee that parking lot being full at all times? Or, I mean, I'm just a little concerned that maybe some of those areas in the parking lot should be, bigger landscape islands, maybe. I know there's a lot of impervious surface on there, and we're already changing. I appreciate the fact that we have 52 acres that are going to be protected, but we're changing the habitat substantially by doing some of this stuff. And yeah, so I just wanted to know what the thought is as far as those spaces being needed.
Sure. Kyle Rayner with VMD. We would love to build fewer spaces as well. The sort of rule of thumb is 1,000 per square feet, one parking space per 1,000 square feet of
Right.
industrial building. In the event that we.
Could you speak a little more?
Speak into
this, Kyle?
I couldn't hear you.
I said it's in our interest to build fewer spaces.
Right.
You know, we only want to build spaces that are going to be used. So generally the rule of thumb in industrial, commercial buildings, warehousing, manufacturing is one parking space per 1,000. So if we have a tenant that may not utilize all the parking spaces, we might dial those back certainly. Say they were working in shifts, weren't all there at the same time. However, we don't have a tenant identified for any of the buildings. We just are about to kick off our marketing plan here in the next 2 weeks. So as we work through that process, we may be coming back for fewer parking spaces. Or
So you might potentially adjust that?
Adjust,
The reason I
yeah.
ask this is because I drive by Amazon, I know they have a huge parking lot, and most of the time, I never see it completely full. So my concern is that you're putting all this asphalt in there, it's creating a huge heat island essentially, right? We're destroying some of the habitat there, appreciate the 52 acres, but I mean, for me, I think that it's going a little beyond what is necessary for parking spaces, because I don't see a warehouse having 300 or 240 people working and parked there at all times. Because like you said, I'm sure there's gonna be first shift, second shift, and all of that.
So I don't want to pay as a developer for any more parking spaces than I need to, right? So I think that as we work through the end users, we will certainly take them into consideration. Some of these may not be distribution users, some of it may be manufacturing that has a higher office count, so maybe they will utilize all of those. And in terms of the heat island effect, other development aspects that we're pursuing, where it's going to be certified as required under the covenants, we will have it's over 90% solar reflectivity on the roof. We are 95% certain that we're going to put solar on every single building. So we are doing everything we can to reduce those types of impacts.
So another thing too that I would like to ask, as far as the canopy that's there, I know that there is a landscaping plan in place. So how many trees are being planted, around those buildings?
I don't know for
We
certain.
did do a landscaping plan. I don't have an exact count. I can count them if you'd like.
Well, I mean, I just need something, approximate.
I mean, I think in our hope there'll be native drought-resistant plants that help relieve some of that heat island effect, replace some of the foliage.
And that's my concern with that heat island effect, that there's enough canopy there and,
If you want,
Right here.
the C20, they're planting quite a few trees.
Trees.
Yeah.
And
Does the colored rendering, I mean, I can see that it at least shows where the islands are green.
Yes.
Is it just representative trees, or are
No,
those
but
the
this
real
is just.
trees?
No, those
this
are-
is building
I know,
one.
but this isn't
Right.
giving a total
So
of
we
what
chose
they
like
need.
red maples.
No, but I mean, these are all, it tells you what
To
kind
go.
of trees right there.
Yeah.
We chose red maples, sugar maples, some
pretty good,
boxwoods, some emerald abrevieties, and some dwarf red twig bushes. So we planted you can see on C12, .3, 12.0, 12.1, and 12.2 and 12.3, you can see the detailed landscaping plan. If you would like, I don't know if you have 11 by 17 plans.
Is that what we're-
C17.
C12
C12, C12.1, 12.0.
and so all the way, so 12, 12.1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, that has all the.
So each
the
building, you
trees.
can see that we've planted the front of the front of the right-of-way on Innovation Way with red maples and the other maple tree, the sugar maple, so it alternates. So those are all shade trees that'll be along the front of Innovation Way. So some of the other developments, even like the gas station across the street, doesn't have that type of canopy in the front of their building. So this will have, natural trees back in there that will grow to be pretty large, to, 30 feet, 40 feet tall, over a 20 or 30 year period. We've planted the most of the islands. We have the bioinfiltration area to the left of Building 1. That's also planted. We've got the green arborvitaes on the left-hand side, where the wall is not being there, but there's also trees on that side of that property line. So we've tried to, create an area of landscaping and also grass for some of the employees to be able to go out, sit, picnic it during lunch if they needed to. So we're trying to, put all of that stuff together. So we also put snow areas on the plans, so we're anticipating where snow storage would be, and making sure we have enough room for that as well. So I don't think that we went light on the trees.
Sufficient.
Looks like there's about 54 just in Building 1.
If I can ask a question, so you're working through MISA now, dealing with the turtle stuff. When do you anticipate that being completed?
So we're about to submit the conservation management permit to Natural Heritage, necessitated based on the pending take of the rare species that we anticipate the division issuing us. As I said, we're about to submit our first round of comments to them. We don't anticipate it taking much more than a month or two. We have the goal of getting turtle protection measures in place prior to October 15th. That's kind of the pinch point for this specific species, because they overwinter underground, and therefore, until sweeps are performed and any individual's quantities as required are removed from the limit of work, no work would be able to start until April 15th when they come out. So
I apologize if they're in the plan set. Have they required you to implement any turtle fencing, walls, any habitat areas? I know in the past I've had to design acres of sand piles adjacent to twig piles, so there were nesting areas. And so are you in that process, or
Yes.
I want to make sure that what's on these permitted drawings is what's being constructed. So if there's something that they want to be included in the construction, it should be on this approved set as we move forward, if possible.
Yes, so
Timing may not work out.
So regarding the nesting areas that you're referencing, those are generally required and conditioned by the division when nesting habitat in particular is being impacted. The entirety of the site is just mixed deciduous coniferous upland. It's majority migrating, estivating, overwintering habitat. There's no breeding habitat on site.
Okay.
There's no exposed sandy slopes. So for that reason, the division hasn't required that per se. They are requiring, or they will be, we haven't got the official letter from them, but they will be requiring a turtle fence to be put around the entirety of the limit of work. It's going to result in something like my team going out for 144 hours on this site to search for turtles and physically remove anybody out there. So we're going to become extremely familiar with the site in that time frame, as well as hopefully getting all of the turtles out. But there will be no constructed features. Natural Heritage has accepted the turtle protection plan, the conservation restriction, and a financial contribution to the Nature Conservancy's Eastern Box Turtle Mitigation Plan as sufficient mitigation regarding 321 CMR 10.
What we've had issues, not necessarily in the city, but in the past, that the turtle fencing becomes a location where trash and refuse gets built up. Is there something in your operation and maintenance plan to handle that area? If you drive out there now, you believe it or not, there's nothing along that stretch, but it's amazing the amount of trash that just shows up, along the edges of the road. So we don't want to see a site enclosed with turtle fence that's laden with refuse.
I think, I don't think that we'd be opposed to a condition of during construction, a weekly type of walk around and make sure that the trash is picked up and removed from the site. And we see that in other municipalities as well.
So
I'm sorry. Yeah, we could also put that in the SWIP as well.
Yeah, and as well as the SWIP reports that'll be required, there is a requirement under the Turtle Protection Plan for monthly inspections, just where I'll go and check during the active season from April to October, just to make sure there's no holes, so nobody can get in, nobody can get out. So with that, you know, we can discuss with the applicant any additional strategies for mitigating trash out there.
Great.
And that'll be as part of our, you know, our EPA SWIP that we have to file as well with DMD, to go out there at least once a week or before and after the rainstorms.
So, with the existing, the wetlands within the 52 acres, right? So we can assume those are down gradient from the project, correct? Obviously, because they're a wetland. And you've got a whole lot of impervious surface with the 4 buildings. My concern is, you've got underground storage that you will percolate back in to the ground, correct? Talked about underground storage?
Infiltrate back.
And then
Has
surface.
overflows though too.
Yes.
That overflows and surface stormwater retention ponds,
Yes.
things like that. My concern is that will there be any disruption of water recharge to the wetland area? So in other words, so you've got a wetland area out there, right? So now adding a ton of impervious surface up gradient from the wetland. So the water that normally would be migrating towards that wetland, where's it gonna go now with your stormwater plan that you have? So if it's a wetland, we don't wanna cut off its water source. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, understood. So as part of our design, and your agent, your city engineer will go along with this, we have to make sure that when we do the drainage design, we're controlling the runoff
Right.
per each site. So when we control that runoff, whatever's there going there now will continue to go there now. We try to reduce it to minimize the reduction just under what is the pre-development type of drainage that's going to the wetlands area. So we're not saying, okay, we got, I don't know, 10 CFS going to the wetlands now, but now in the post-development, we got 1. So we're not trying to reduce that flow. We're trying to match the flows as best as we can. So if we had vernal pools out there, which we don't, then we would have to make sure the same amount of volume of water that's going to that vernal pool is met in the post-development. But we don't have that issue here, but we're still trying to mimic the existing additions as it relates to the stormwater going to the wetlands, recharging the groundwater and also recharging the wetlands at the same time.
What you'll see often in a lot of municipalities, we were just talking about wetlands bylaws, some municipalities have a foolish idea of requiring a reduction in peak runoff or even peak volume to a wetland. Now that flies in the face directly of what Chris just brought up, because you don't want to decrease the amount of water that's feeding this wetland system. That's how the wetland thrives. It costs more money to reduce the peaks from pre to post development. So one, they clearly don't want to decrease the amount of water. If they decreased it, then they're spending too much money on drainage, and the applicant wouldn't be happy with the design. So what you try to do is get it as close to existing. By law, it has to be less. But again, that's peak rate. That's not total volume of water that's making it to the wetland. That's just, you slow it down just enough so that the peaks offset and maybe flatten out so it's a little bit more consistent, rather than seeing, you know, instead of this big bell curve, you see a wider, flatter bell curve, but it's the same amount of water that's getting there. Whether it's through overflow or whether it's through groundwater recharge, it's all ultimately going to feed that wetland system.
I just want to be sure we, as closely as possible, we don't alter the hydrology
Understood. Yep.
of the wetland area
And
to the extent that we can.
That's the intent of our
Right.
design.
And it's a very comprehensive plan. My concern, obviously, you got direct parking lot runoff being piped into a wetland area, which is not a good thing. So I'm assuming any of that water, that surface runoff that's reintroduced to the wetland will have flowed through, through either
We've got
reintroduced
a
through
multitude
percolation
of
or.
CDS water quality structures.
Good, okay.
We've got underground systems, we've got at-grade systems, we've got bioretention systems. So we've got a mix of things to help do exactly what you're talking about.
Probably, I mean, unlike what you've probably seen, again, the redevelopment authority has a standard of
That's hard.
the total suspended solids removal at 90%. The Wetlands Protection Act is 80%. It's very difficult to get to 90%. You're
Very.
actually throwing money wastefully, because it's almost like you can't just get the extra 10% cheaply. You've got to basically double your efforts. So it's they've had to meet that requirement, and the redevelopment authority won't back down on that. So, yes, any stormwater that hits a surface will be treated prior to either infiltration or discharge.
Right, no, it's a very comprehensive plan with various treatment modalities, so I'm fine, I just wanted to be sure.
I want to,
Public record.
through the chair, Mr. Chairman, there's at least 20 to 24 water quality structures through these 3 sites, or 4 sites. So, and one is in Freetown. We also have vegetated filter strips, and pea stone diaphragm areas as well to help out with the storm water. So we've kind of mixed a whole bunch of different ideas that are in the DEP stormwater rules and regulations into the site. We just didn't pick one thing. And you know, your agent and your city engineer is absolutely right. It's very difficult to get to 90%. And there's a few towns that we've done it in. We've done it in Tingsboro, Massachusetts, where we did a very, very large site, kind of like this, for 400 parking spaces for a church. So we were able to meet that 90% with this same type of water quality structures and a multitude of different types of drainage design to get to that point. So I think that what we put in front of you in the city is our best foot forward, and to make sure that we meet all of these standards so that we can obtain an order of conditions from this commission.
Okay, sounds good. Does the board have any other questions?
Yeah, I just had you talked about, going back to your turtles, you were talking about the eastern box turtles.
That's correct.
Are there any other things that you're looking out for there besides the eastern box turtle?
So when projects occur within estimated or priority habitat, it's the due diligence of the applicant of a project to reach out to the Division of Fish and Wildlife to first of all confirm what species are out there, and then go through the process of the CMP that we were discussing earlier. So in reaching out to the division, they've only indicated that the site's mapped for eastern box turtles. They previously weren't, but they update their maps every 4 years. And in August of 2021, they just started mapping the site as eastern box turtle habitat. So this is what triggers the whole review with MISA, the Mass Endangered Species Act.
But there's nothing else?
No, just box turtles.
Okay.
Well, on the state's list, you may find some.
On the state's list, I'm sure
Put
there's
those in
other
a box
critters.
and take them out.
Well,
Yeah.
for any of
Is that
the
what's in that
others,
box?
you need a
I don't know what's
vernal
in that
pond or
box.
I have
standing
gifts.
water.
Are
in
there
order to have
salamanders
other
in that
species.
box?
No, but I do have gifts.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a follow-up on that. Are you technically exactly adjacent to the bioreserve? I think you are.
Bioreserve.
Are you referring to the state forest?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes, that borders us to the east.
right. So that, in effect, this is part of the 300 acres that was reserved for this kind of business activity when the bioreserve was created, I think.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. This means that, and currently the land is vacant, meaning there's no construction on it, because otherwise
correct.
you wouldn't be here if it were filled up. And you wisely have talked about reserving not even touching the 52 acres. The 52 acres, see, I couldn't really tell, there's no signs out there that says this is reserved land and this is where we're gonna build. It's kind of a tough site to get this material and then go hiking. Is the reserved area adjacent to the bioreserve is what I'm asking?
Yes, it's connected.
And
Okay.
for what it's worth, natural heritage always requires signs and monumentation to be put in place in the field for those to demarcate the bounds of a conservation restriction.
No,
So
that wasn't
would
what
be-
I was referring to. I was referring to the fact that you don't have any signs out there now. And I just think this gives you a very special, this gives anyone who has developed, you have a special responsibility, is what I'm saying. Because previously, that 300 acres was in effect part of it was a neighbor to the bioreserve. Now it's gonna, now 200 and, I can't do the math, but whatever minus 52 is gonna get built on, except you're not gonna build on all of it. And,
Reverend, you could, as a condition of approval, and depending upon where the permits go, but you could make it very high on your priority of special conditions that the conservation restriction, monumentation, and signage gets put up prior to the start of construction. If MISA doesn't require that themselves, which they may, but you could make that high
Sure.
on your list as a condition that that signage be put in place prior to one tree being cut. If
yeah,
you
we
so
don't
chose.
want any mistakes here.
Can do just
And
like we
we've
do
had
have
some-
a
we've
farm.
I
had
assume that
we've
it's
had
flagged,
some
it's flagged,
mistakes
right?
with
Well,
conservation
Yeah,
lands.
so Reverend Hogg, it's flagged, so you can actually go out there and see their flagging.
The wetlands line is flagged, which is pretty much the same shape as the
The
conservation.
52 acres is, it roughly is here.
Right, okay.
And the state forest too here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm using the term bioreserve rather than state forest because, but it's the same, it's the
Same idea, right?
It's the same land, it's just simply a name for the combine
Right.
when I use the word bioreserve. And, yeah, I would like to make sure that they don't, I would like to put that signage up before anything is moved around out there. Yeah, thank you.
And if,
Remember that when we get to that point.
And we're not there tonight,
No,
No.
no.
We can
Hopefully
put that in
soon.
conditions, though.
okay. And I don't think we're gonna vote on it tonight in
No,
the sense of
no.
approval or disapproval.
No.
And the other thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman, before any tree clearing can be done, we have to go out there and stake out the erosion control, have it installed. Normally, we certify that it's been installed. And I think with Tim's office, they have to put up a turtle fence, put all of those things in place,
Right.
and then have somebody come out and take a look at it, make sure it's in the right place. And then say okay to the tree clearing.
Right.
So I may have just given you 4 conditions, so.
Okay. You don't have any the other question I had, we just saw it, you don't have any archaeology stuff. Have you looked at that at all?
I think that, well, we weren't part of it, but I know through the through the chair, Mr. Chairman, through the MIPA process, that was, I'm sure that it was explored. I did not hear any result of that through our amendment through MIPA, so.
Yeah.
The MIPA, I don't understand that, that's original, I don't understand that. Would you?
Through the MIPA process, in order, when you're developing this amount of land, and you're up against the state highway, and at the original part of this project, the state highway interchange was part of this project. So when you have a project that trips state permitting at any level, say we needed a water quality certification, or if we need some type of state action, we have to file with the Secretary of Environmental Affairs, which is a huge process. So there's usually a draft, there's usually an ENF or an expanded ENF, a draft EIR, and a final EIR. And this has gone through that process of all of those steps.
I mean, you filed it and you went through the process.
Our firm did not go through the original process, but our firm went through the amendment process with the Secretary's office. So we did that as part of this process. And I'm sure that the Conservation Commission would have been notified of all of those ongoing things that we did as part of that. So that's one of the reasons why the MIPA was involved at an early stage.
MIPA, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with
Massachusetts
MIPA.
Environmental Protection
What?
Act, Agency Act.
So, Mr. Chair, just as clarification, the MIPA process warrants an environmental notification form, which isn't a permit in itself, more the state's way of making sure everybody, all the state agencies are notified, all of the archaeological people, the historical commissions, Fish and Wildlife, the local commission. So it's a big notification that goes out to all
Yeah,
of these
this would have been,
agencies.
MIPA in
And,
the sense, not MIPA.
No.
MEPA.
Okay, I
MEPA.
wish, I hate these initials. Okay, sorry, I also been speaking Spanish most of the day,
Okay.
and that explains, that's part of
So the
my problem.
redevelopment authority and the state went through this process, and that creates a framework of how the entire area gets developed. Then when the applicant comes in and wants to do something
Yeah.
specific, they go back and ask for a project change
Okay,
to address specifically what they want to do.
If I wanted to inquire about about evaluation of archaeological aspects, I would,
It would have been reviewed in that document, in that, I want to say there's 23 agencies that get notified, including tribal areas, and I'm pretty sure they're still on the
Okay.
list. I think it was 23.
It's
different
my
sections.
understanding that the archaeological study was done many, many years ago when the entire Innovation Way and all of that was conceived. There was some controversy at the time, but they found that there was no areas of archaeological significance out there. And that went back and forth. So it was,
there was a,
it was
actually. there was a
reviewed
bit-
very carefully.
There were some folks that thought that disagreed with that
Right.
finding.
Right.
But,
Which I think was the Stop and Shop area. I think that was the biggest area.
well, the whole area,
The whole area.
you see, you can't, it's very hard to, obviously, the indigenous peoples traveled through that area. I mean, they traveled through most of what is now Fall River, for that matter. And we just have to be careful, and this is a whole area, and you're close to a traditional trail that goes from Fall River to Taunton, or used to.
Yeah, it's called Route 24.
Well, right, it's, well, actually, 24 actually is part of the trail. I
Is
mean,
it?
It
followed
probably
it.
was.
Probably was, yeah.
Every possible state agency that could have a comment gets notified during that process.
Yeah, I know, I just,
We can't do everybody else's jobs for them.
Right, and I'm sure if I may, through the chair, we wouldn't be at this stage of the game if there was
Yeah.
an issue. We
Well, I
wouldn't
wanna
have,
be
we
sure,
wouldn't have
yeah.
been passed through
Yeah.
the secretary's office if there was an issue of, archaeological type of issues out
yeah,
here.
right, okay.
Do we have a?
That's
does
it for
anyone in
me,
the,
that's it for me,
room
I've
have
got
any
nothing
questions?
else. Okay.
Sir, do you have a?
No, I just wanted to look at your plans.
Oh, okay.
It's not showing you that.
Was there any other comments from
I
you?
have a public comment on
Sure.
this project. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Suzanne Olivecki,
Could
and
you
I'm
just say your
an-
address too?
I'm sorry?
Your address?
I'm an attorney. Do you need my personal address?
That'd be nice, yeah.
Okay, I live at, you want my residential or business address?
Well, I guess.
Business is fine.
Business is fine.
30 Federal Street, Boston.
Okay.
I am an attorney at the firm Partridge, Snow and Hahn, and my firm and I are proud to represent Hutchins Holdings in this matter. And Hutchins Holdings is in a butter and a limited objector to the VMD project. I am joined here tonight by Jay Hutchins, who is a manager of Hutchins Holdings. As you may know, Hutchins Holding is an affiliate of Raw Seafoods, Ice Cube LLC, and Ice Cube's Logistics, all based in Fall River and employing employees in the Fall River and surrounding areas. While Hutchins Holding does not object to this project in its entirety, it does object vehemently to plans as submitted, particularly with this siting of building number 1. In fact, Hutchins Holding filed a lawsuit today in Bristol County Superior Court in order to determine the rights that Hutchins has in regards to the lot that is being utilized that abuts Hutchins' existing lot. As you all know, Hutchins Holdings purchased a lot at Innovation Way in 2020, and that lot is currently being developed. At the time that that was purchased, Hutchins Holdings was also provided a right of first refusal for the abutting lot, which is currently on the plans shown as citing the majority of building number 1. As the plans reflect, one of those buildings abuts the current Hutchins Holdings lot, for which Hutchins Holdings had a ROFR. In July of 2021, the FRRA and VMD reached an agreement as to material terms concerning the purchase of that lot that is subject to Hutchins ROFR. That at that time, the material terms that were reached were not shared with Hutchins Holding, they were not conveyed, and the ROFR was not honored in that way. Hutchins happened to stumble across an internet posting stating that this property was under contract in January of this year. At that time, Hutchins submitted a notice of default to the FRRA, informing the FRRA that its rights had been violated through entering into a contract without providing the material terms to Hutchins, pursuant to which Rofer Hutchins would then be able to have the opportunity to accept those terms and purchase it as a first right. In response to that letter in January of 2022, the FRRA provided Hutchins with the material terms, and Hutchins then properly and timely exercised the right of first refusal. Months later, the FRRA presented Hutchins with a bad faith purpose of rejecting the exercise of that right of first refusal. There have been discussions going on since March. There have been communications between myself, counsel for VMD, myself, counsel for FRRA, and no agreement has been reached, and we were therefore forced today to file an action in Superior Court seeking a preliminary injunction on the sale of this lot, and only this lot. Our objection is limited to the abutting lot to which Hutchins has the right, and also seeking a judgment that that should be sold only to Hutchins, not VMD or any other third party. So as I stated at the outset, our objection is limited to that one lot and not the project as a whole. And if we are successful in this litigation, which we expect that we will be, Hutchins intends to build a seafood processing plant associated with raw seafoods, and that would employ approximately or up to hundreds of Fall River and surrounding area residents. And we wanted to let the board know and to lodge our limited objection. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the application before you was filed by the Fall River Redevelopment Authority, who is the landowner. They're the legal entity that owns this. They have the ability to appear before this commission. If the abutter has a concern with regards to the Wetland Protection Act and the purview of this board, you should request that that be submitted to you in writing. And if there is a concern beyond the limit and narrow scope of this Conservation Commission, anything beyond that really should not be discussed. Any legal proceedings that have or may take place is not the purview of the Conservation Commission. This is not the venue to have that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
And I would just like to add, we had notified Hutchins in conjunction with the city, or with the redevelopment authority, that we did not have we did not purchase the property. We had an option upon which we could exercise that once the right of first refusal expired. We are very confident of our position as well, and would like to continue this application if the board so wishes. We were a little caught off guard by this because, we have been in discussion with them and would have appreciated, notice, given that our position, the city's position, the redevelopment authority's position as well. So if you have any questions related to that, if obviously as Mr. Aguiar mentioned, this is not the forum. We're confident that we will prevail in the appropriate forum. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I may again, the same way my response to the abutter would be the same to the applicant, that this is not, the commission should not be discussing this.
Yeah, but it's not in our purview. If you could submit that in writing to us. By the way, I was out at your property this weekend, and I thank you for keeping up all your
He did mention this morning how well the site is kept,
so,
and
yeah,
you don't often see a construction site that size kept so well.
Yeah, so that was good. I'm glad to see that.
That's a wetlands
But,
issue. That's what we should deal with.
So, but if you could submit that in writing, I mean, it's beyond our board here now, so.
I understand. Thank you. We will.
Okay, thanks. So we don't have questions?
Nope.
Okay, I would like to have a motion to table this till September 12th meeting.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. My concern is, why are we tabling this?
I haven't reviewed the drainage entirely
Okay.
yet, so
This is-
upon my
I
review.
just wanted to-
and
right,
my-
okay.
and my review submitted to them, and they'll have a better understanding of, again, I think it was only filed 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So when we get through my review.
There's nothing better to do but work on my
Nothing,
stuff, right?
you know. So no, but as I stated, the plan set, and everybody can see how.
Okay,
complete the
understood.
plan
Thank you
set
very
is.
much. What was that date, Mr. Chairman?
September 12th,
September 12th.
5:30.
5:30. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Is this less than
Thank you.
$50?
Yes.
$49.99.
Next, could I have a motion to take items 6, 7 as one?
Make a motion, take them together.
Second.
Yes.
Second, roll call vote?
Aye.
Something
Aye.
to scale up plans with.
Aye.
All right, where the heck are we now? All right, we had let's see, the first one is a review and discussion of Brightman Street Bridge demolition, project number 610701. And the next one, 7, was receipt of correspondence, review and discussion of an estimated 25 gallons of oil released in front of 240 Flint Street. Tracking number is 4-002 9419. Any discussion? Can I have a motion to place on file?
So moved.
Second.
Roll
Second.
call vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next, approval of minutes from
Yeah,
July
so that should
11th,
be-
2022 meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Sure, that's all I'm not
Second.
speech to everyone.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Abstain.
Okay. No public
Wasn't here.
input. Before we adjourn, Nina, is this your last meeting?
I hope so.
No.
Well, I would
public
like to
record.
wish Nina.
When's your due date?
You could technically say yes.
Oh,
I
6th.
could.
You're not gonna be here for the 12th?
I understand. but I
Well,
know why.
congratulations. I hope it goes smooth.
Makes sense.
Hopefully we get a new little conservation
Yeah.
agent on our hands. We'll get them working right away.
So can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get a
Yes,
second
aye.
on that to adjourn?
Who? I think Jim.
Second.
Me.